Hi Hillary. Today we're going to have a quick quilting lesson and we're going to do paper piecing. And the book we'll be using is Vintage Quilts, and it also comes with a DVD in the back, and on the DVD is the pattern that we'll be using today. And as you can see, it's 2 rows of colored stars with uneven white sides. The quilter here chose to use just scrap fabric. Well, I don't have any scrap fabric, so I had to buy all new fabrics. And they use 2 different kinds of backgrounds. And because you have to worry about all these little rows of backgrounds, I said that's too hard for my first paper piecing quilt, so I chose to ignore that as well. So the first direction is to cut up your fabrics. And you're going to have sets of cool fabrics and sets of warm fabrics. And so for cools, I selected blues and some greens, this orange and yellow combination, and this peach and red combination. My background fabric is a marbled soft white with a darker beige color marbled into it. And each of these stars is made up of an outside star and an inside star. And I chose to make all my inside stars the same fabric and vary the outside stars with a light side and a dark side. So that's why you see the 2 different blues, the 2 different greens, and so on. So for the inside star, I chose this fabric, and now you're going to see what we did with the paper. The book came with a template for this, and it actually comes on 2 pages. You get the big template and the small template. Our teacher put them both on the same paper so that we didn't waste as much paper. She also gave us the key. B2 will be the background, B1 will be the light side of the star, A1's the dark side of the star, A2 is more background, A3 is the front star, A4 is more background or the white fabric. It's also handy to note which side you attach the B piece to. So this is the B side. The first thing I did after labeling backgrounds and light stars was to give myself a starting spot. So I measured 1/4 inch from this sewing line here over to here. This will give me a starting point. I bought a package of 50 sheets, and this is Papers for Foundation Piecing. And what is nice about this is my copy paper. It's really thick and heavy, like nice good Xerox paper is. And this is thin and it tears easily. So when you're all done and you have to rip off all the papers off the backs, it will rip nicely. This is one of the copies that we had, and we don't need all this extra paper, so I'm going to go ahead and cut out our 2 patterns. And we'll start with this light star. As you can see, it says light and background. And that's this is the side I'm going to look at when I'm sewing, so I need to work on the back side. You can kind of see through the paper because I drew fairly dark lines. And I'm going to lay this down here, and now it says light side right here. And that line I drew is 1/4 inch above, and so it gives me a nice starting point to line up this paper, just like this. So now it's even with that line, and my background is going to go right sides together, right on top of that. So right sides together, and I'm going to flip it over. We're going to come over to the sewing machine, and now we're going to sew right on this line, this center line. There's the back side and the right side. So let's go over to the ironing board. set your seam, press it open, and now you have 2 strips sewn together. Let's go to the cutting board. Now we'll trim this triangle along the solid line. This has little triangle points. This helps line them up at the end when you're sewing the big pieces together, so I'm going to trim these little points. And set that aside. Now this piece, we're going to sew 4 pieces just that same way. We're going to sew all 4 pieces together. We're going to start with dark star and background, starting with 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to turn it over, and I can see the line for where to place it. So I'm going to lay that down right here. Some people will use a dot of glue. You can use some tacky glue, and you can put it right here and tack it into place. You can use a pin. I have found that I don't like the tacky glue because it sticks really well, and then you have to wash it before you can do anything, and since I'm too lazy, I don't want to wash it, so I don't use the glue. So we're lining up that first piece. We're going to line this up with right sides together, and if you have a pattern that's really faint like this, you can lay it right there on your leg, and you can see the pattern is really good on this side and white on that side, so I know that this is the wrong side. So I'm going to place it right sides together. Flip it over. You can see I've got my 1/4 inch foot on there, and where I can follow my tracing line, or I can just sew on the center line right. And you just stop at that folding line. Now we'll press this open. Okay, now I have this piece of fabric, and it's a lot of fabric for those 2 little triangles. I'm going to flip it so I'm working on the side I can see. I have this piece of cardboard. It's just a bookmark, but it's a useful thing, this piece of thin cardboard, because it gives me this nice edge to fold that paper to. And then I also bought this add a 1/4 ruler. This is a 6 inch, they come in 6 and 12. And on this side there's a ridge. It lays up nicely against this cardboard. I just shove that against there so that I have exactly a 1/4 inch. And I'm going to roll that. Now I have a seam to match up my next piece of fabric with. My next piece is A3 front star. I'm going to grab a front star color. I found that it goes this way quite nicely. And I'm going to turn it over and sew on that sewing line that we just added a 1/4 to. The first 8 that I did, I used the glue. I like the glue a lot. It keeps everything really nicely in place. Just for that first piece, but once you get the hang of it, it's good. But if I was working with smaller pieces, I would definitely use the glue because they do tend to wiggle around a lot. Now we're going to go do the same thing. We're going to iron it open, fold it, cut it one more time. So we'll set the seam, fold it open,